This time we're looking at guilty pleasure action movies, anything that wasn't certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. And the first movie is Die Hard 3 with a Vengeance, another movie I was very surprised to see on this list. I haven't met many people that don't like this movie, especially compared to the previous release, Die Hard 2, which again, I actually like that. It's just not enough for this list. It's the best buddy cop movie that doesn't include a cop. With a Vengeance, it came in during the action movie overkill of the 90s. And for that reason, it may not have stood out as much as maybe it should have. But by today's standards, it's a fun action thriller, and it's got, starring Bruce Willis, who was kind of at the top of his game at the time. And I think it's what most films are hoping to accomplish, and contains now what are considered both legends, right? Like, he was at the top of his game, Bruce Willis. This was kind of a coming out party for Samuel L. And now they're pretty synonymous with being movie stars, and this was a movie they were in together.
I'm sorry you got Why you keep calling me Jesus? I look Puerto Rican to you. Guy back there called you Jesus. He didn't say Jesus, he said, hey, Zeus. My name is Zeus. Zeus? Yeah, Zeus. As in father of Apollo, Mount Olympus. Don't fuck with me or I'll shove a lightning bolt up your ass. Zeus! You got a problem with that? No. Shit. I don't have a problem with that. Downtown, Police Plaza.
Next movie is definitely a nostalgic fest for me. Transformers, the original 2007 one, the Michael Bay one, not the awesome animated one from 1984, which it's an animated movie made for kids of the time. I wasn't going to put that on this list, but I do actually think that Transformers, the 2007 version, is actually pretty good. It's not a great movie, but it's almost perfectly embodies the cartoon show minus Bumblebee as a Camaro. It was made for people like me who watched it when they were younger and had the toys, and it was made about as adult as you could expect it to be, while still appeasing, children and having some of that goofy humor. He may have soured his reputation as a person more recently, but Shia LaBeouf is really likable in this role. Sam Witwicky. Some of the gags are forced, but there's more heart in this movie than any of the sequels, which I kind of consider unbearable to watch. Not counting the Bumblebee movie, that movie's great, but the other Transformers movies. And this is the first movie that I can really remember thinking like, hey, I'm not just watching computer-generated imagery here. The actual Transformers look amazing, and most of all, it's a movie made for people that are fans of the original cartoon like me, so it did a good job of kind of bringing together the newer generation and the older generation that we're now adults now, and I really liked it, and I still watch it every once in a while, and can't wait to watch it with my kids when they're a little older. The next movie, I think, is probably the most controversial addition to this list. It's Under Siege 2: Dark Territory. I'm pretty much game for any movie that involves the so-called hero isolated. So it's like the Die Hard formula, right? You're isolated in one place. It's one of my other movies that I really like. Executive Decision kind of does that on a plane. But I think it works well as Steven Seagal is stuck on a train in this one. It's a different type of against all odds that you'd see in like a Schwarzenegger or Stallone film. It's more about being clever, not just overpowering your opponents, yet, he's still kicking their asses. But it's really a shame to me that Seagal hasn't been in a quality film since '96. Really, that means theatrical movie that he wasn't just kind of a cameo in. Because even at his best, like, Seagal movies really are always a guilty pleasure, and this is kind of one of the last Seagal movies, as you remember him from the 80s, where he's just kind of a loner, quiet badass, and there's still a little bit of acting and story. But I really did find him captivating in his 80s and early 90s films, and this is one that I always liked as well. Of course, he's pretty much gone off the deep end at this point.
Under Siege 2: Dark Territory.
This, I'm trained for.
The next one is actually a great movie, and I can't believe it had such a low Rotten Tomatoes score of 38%. So really any cinephile should appreciate this film. It may be made for a younger audience, but it plays so well through movie cliches and does its best to point out the ridiculousness of them. So Last Action Hero, 93, Arnold Schwarzenegger's at his top, and it just did not get the critical reviews that I think it should have got. I think of it as Scream for the action genre. It has all the great conventions of action movies, a great English accented antagonist, a big gun-toting reckless protagonist, hot love interest, and flesh wounds. It was written by Shane Black, who excels with these kind of action comedies. Most recently, The Nice Guys, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, but probably most famous for like Lethal Weapons. But The Last Action Hero is self-aware, and that even the child that gets pulled into the movie recognizes the irony of everything. And I think it's a perfect example of when critics take themselves too seriously. They didn't understand the quality satire that this film is going after. And I think now that we can look back and understand like the 80s and 90s style of action and even action comedy, this movie parodies that so well. And it is really fun, and it's got great set pieces.
The drug dealer of the house, please.
Have a nice day.
Have him killed.
The last movie, again, a lot of nostalgia here, but the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie from 1990. In my opinion, this is easily the best TMNT film that's been made. It's surprisingly dark in tone, especially even compared to its own sequels and the new ones. And part of the reason for that is that it's based on the comics more so than based on the cartoon that made it so popular at the time. Everything about it is closer to that comic, so even some of the story details are different, but it is a lot darker. I mean, just think of, they probably couldn't do it if they wanted to at the time, but like the Foot Clan in the show are robots, right? Versus in the movie, they're humans. So obviously you can't have the turtles slicing and dicing real humans the same way, but the fight scenes are, I wouldn't say graphic, but they're intense enough, and I think they're well choreographed, especially that scene of Raphael's fighting the whole group on top of the roof. But I just think they really get like the New Yorker side of the Turtles too, and the teenage side. I mean, Raphael is just awesome in the movie, and all the Turtles are very well represented. But I still watch this movie and develop a sense of anxiety as Raphael slowly becomes outnumbered during that scene on the roof. I just think it's a really good film, and just so surprised to see such a low rating on this, especially when you just compare it to the new ones, which are more of that Michael Bay fantastical style. It's just, style over substance.
I mean, come on. How do you guys expect to beat me? Good answer. Good answer.